Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
Go woke or get broke. Even in today's world, it seems so crazy that even things like the Muppets, the creation of Jim Henson, the Muppets are supposed to be a wholesome portrayal of just crazy and furry little friends who work out everyday problems. Mr. Rogers had puppets and Craig Ferguson had puppets. It's just an easy way to work through problems that kids are dealing with. Well, lo and behold, it seems like, as to no surprise to anyone, that the Muppets are now being labeled as offensive. So, over the weekend, Disney Plus started streaming The Muppet Show. And they put a disclaimer saying that for warning of offensive content. The disclaimer shows prior to each episode warns viewers that this show features stereotypes and mistreatment of peoples of cultures. This program includes negative depictions and or mistreatment of people of cultures. These stereotypes are wrong then and are wrong now. I don't know. I can't think of anything that the Muppets have done that would be considered appropriating different cultures or making fun of different cultures. Maybe besides the Swedish Chef, but he's making fun, like you said, Jacob, he's making fun of white people. So that's not really offensive. So the only thing that they can point to is the fact that they had Johnny Cash on and he sang a song in front of a Confederate flag. Oh my God. So what is I don't understand why people put up with this crap anymore. Like, there's nothing offensive about the Muppets. It's outrageous that I even have to say that. There's nothing offensive about the Muppets. It's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be just stupid puppets. They're puppets. It's supposed to be funny. Now, granted, yes, some of these shows came out 30 years ago. I'm sorry, I hate to break it to you people, but the world was slightly different back then. Because you know what? People could take a joke. Right? When the Swedish Chef goes, right? It's supposed to be funny. You're not supposed to know what he's saying because he's Swedish. But no. Oh, no. We have to get woke. So, you know, the way that they twist and turn the good intentions of real creators and artists and people that try to make the world a better place, like Jim Henson or Mr. Rogers or even Walt Disney. The way that the left and the woke crowd is twisting and turning everything to make it so where everything has to be virtue signaling and we have to get woke and we have to call out our whiteness and, you know, we have to apologize for things that might be in these cartoons or in these shows that might be offensive because, you know, we can't undo what's already been done. So the fact that they're going to bastardize the creation of Jim Henson and the fact that Walt Disney, the company Walt Disney is doing this, has probably Walt Disney spinning in his grave. Because the whole point of Disney was to be a repository of American values. That's what Walt Disney created Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland or Disneyland to be. Right? You look at Magic Kingdom. You have Frontierland, where the whole point of Frontierland is to just pay respect and show what frontier life was like. That's why you had the Hall of Presidents. You got Fantasyland, which is where you get like Tinkerbell in the It's a Small World and all that stuff from. It's just supposed to be fun. Then you have Futureland or Future World or Tomorrowland, where it's all about dreaming for the future, taking what society was and making it better. That's what Epcot was supposed to be about. But no, we can't make the world better for everyone. We have to make it better just because, we make the world better by saying how evil and awful white people are. And everything from the past, whether it's Jim Henson or the cartoons that Walt Disney created, we have to apologize because the world was just a little less insensitive as it was back then. the people who run Disney now are destroying the vision of Walt Disney. Wouldn't you agree with that, Jacob?
I mean, yeah, I'd agree with that.
So, given what's happened with the lady from The Mandalorian and the way that Disney just refused to apologize for literally filming a movie next to labor camps, they defended doing that. And now with the Muppet stuff, and now with all the woke stuff that they're constantly shoving out in their content, I mean, I've considered not using Disney Plus anymore. I've considered making like a soft boycott, but at the same time, I love going to the parks. I love the content that Disney used to have. What they used to do, I think, was great. So it's kind of in this, I don't know, conundrum, if you will. Do you continue to support this company that has turned completely against what its founding was? Do you feel that way, Jacob?
Yeah, I mean, nothing surprises me with that kind of stuff. I mean, it is what it is.
Nothing surprises you?
I mean, no, not with what they've done so far. No.
Are you in the least bit, I don't know, not outraged, but just like, really, come on?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm not like a fan of it. I'm not really a fan of it, but I don't know what. I mean, they did that for all of the Mickey Mouse cartoons have the same kind of disclaimer. I mean, they've been doing this for a while. Looney Tunes for Amazon Prime did the same thing.
They did the same thing with Tom and Jerry.
Tom and Jerry same thing as well. So it's just one more way for them to, I don't know, apologize for what happened in the past, I guess.
Well, Disney said that they in the statement said Disney is committed to creating stories with inspirational and aspirational themes that reflect the rich diversity of the human experience around the globe. Well, isn't that in direct, opposition to what they did in China with filming the live-action Mulan? You've got literally people in cages supposedly in China because of religious differences or differences as far as how they might be against what the state is doing in China. So that doesn't seem to make any sense. And they're also going to put warnings in front of the Aristocrats, Dumbo, Peter Pan, and Swiss Family Robinson. So I don't understand what's offensive about Swiss Family Robinson, or what's offensive about Peter Pan. What's offensive about Aristocrats or Dumbo? What's offensive about any of that? Nothing. And if you got a problem with it, you're a weak human being. Get over yourself. I don't understand. It seems like they will bend the knee and cower to the white, woke, liberal person. But when it comes to actual people that have real problems in their life, they're actually being persecuted for just because of who they are. We filmed a movie near where you're being persecuted. Whatever. It seems like it's just a big contradiction. And, that also comes off on the heels of what happened, again, over the weekend with Coca-Cola. So Coca-Cola are facing mounting backlash from conservatives online. Now, it's not just conservatives. This is from Newsweek, which is kind of like a left-wing site anyway. Over allegations of anti-white rhetoric after an internal whistleblower leaks screenshots of diversity training materials that encourages staff to try to be less white. So it's perfectly okay to be anti-white or say things about the white race that's very, very detrimental. So you can't say like you can't, if there's problems with a cartoon that was made 30 years ago, maybe they poked fun at Native Americans or maybe they poked fun of minorities or whatever, that's not okay. But you could have one of the largest corporations in America say, oh, you need to be less white. You need to be less ignorant, arrogant, less certain, less defensive, and you need to be more humble. And it's okay for them to say research shows that by age 3 to 4, children understand it's better to be white. Do you ever remember being that way, Jake, when you were 3 or 4?
I didn't really put too much thought into what color my skin was. I was more worried about other things that 3-year-olds are worried about.
They're building this as a part of a plan to build an inclusive workspace. No, they're not. No, they're not. Nothing about this is inclusive. Because you're basically telling one portion of your work staff that they need to be less than themselves. They need to feel bad because of the color of their skin. Now, I think there's kind of a word for that. And I can't remember what it's called, but it seems to get thrown out around a lot. You know, what's it called, Jake? It starts with an R and rhymes with ist. Is that racist? Racist?
Possibly.
That's racist. To say to be less white. Imagine if it said to be less black. The left and conservatives alike would cry, hey, that's not okay. If you had a majority-minority workforce that was made entirely of black people, and you said in a company memo or training memo saying, hey, be less black, how do you think that would go over? Like a lead balloon. It wouldn't. But because it's white people, oh, well, be less white.
Now it's okay. I mean,
now it's perfectly okay.
Duh.
So, and Coca-Cola didn't necessarily apologize for it. They said our Better Together global learning curriculum, which sounds so Orwellian and so weird, is part of a learning plan to help build an inclusive workplace. It is comprised of a number of short videjettes, each a few minutes long. I think it's supposed to say videos. The training includes access to LinkedIn Learning as far as topics of including diversity, equity, and inclusion. Unless you're white, it's all about it being inclusive unless you're excluded. That's literally what they're saying. Apologize for who you are. You know, you need to be less certain of the fact of who you are. You need to be less arrogant, less ignorant. Realize that even though you have nothing to do with what happened hundreds of years ago, you have to be sorry for that fact. Like the same thing with Disney. Doesn't matter the fact that the content was created 50, almost 100 years ago. You have to be sorry for that. You have no... The current CEO, or whoever runs Disney Plus, has no control of the fact of cartoons that were made 70 years ago. But he has to be sorry for it? Why? That literally makes no sense. I'm not a fan of Candace Owens, but she did say, you know, what I said, that, you know, if a corporate company sent around a training kit instructing black people how to be less black, the world would implode and lawsuits would follow. Generally, I hope these employees sue Coca-Cola for blatant racism and discrimination. So here's some of the things that the training actually said. I'll just read it from here. Come on, computer. Gosh. All right, so confronting racism, understanding what it means to be white, challenging what it means to be racist. To be less white is to be less oppressive, less arrogant, to be less certain, to be less defensive, to be less ignorant, to be more humble, listen, believe, break with apathy, break with white solidarity. In the U.S. and other Western nations, white people are socialized to feel that they are inherently superior because they are white. I have never felt that way. Talking about two square and square white guys here, I have never felt that way. Have you ever felt that way, Jacob?
No.
No.
Can't say I've ever felt that I'm superior just because I have less melanin in my skin than somebody else.
I can guarantee you can go to any blue-collar, working-class white guy and ask him that same question. He'll laugh in your face. Legit. He'll laugh in your face. He'll say, yeah, I'm the one that's privileged having to work 50 hours a week just to put food on the table. I'm having to put roofs on houses in the middle of Georgia in the summer. I'm installing air conditioners in the attic in the summer. Yeah, I'm so privileged. Yeah, I drive hundreds of miles every day as a delivery guy. Yeah, I'm so privileged. Yeah, I work a dead-end job at a desk, and I hate it, but I do it because I have to. I bet you he feels so privileged. They almost seem like they don't know who they're talking to. Because the majority of white working class people, that's what they do. You know, they work jobs that they really don't like, but they have to because they have to provide it for their family. And then at the same time, all of the college pencil-necked, you know, woke liberals will go out and say, "Hey, privileged." What? For what? For what? You know, the guys that don't have any savings that that spend all their money to put their kids through college, and then they get into college, and it turns out the college turns them to hate their parents and hate everything that they taught them. Yeah, they're so privileged they are. Give me a break. You got anything on that, Jacob?
Not. I mean, it's just there's nothing that surprises me with that kind of stuff anymore. I'm just kind of sort of jaded to a lot of it.
Yeah, I am as well. And, you know, I'm getting kind of tired of pointing out the hypocrisy. You know, I did a little bit, but, you know, if you don't know that the hypocrisy exists now, I mean, you're never going to figure it out. Well, speaking of, I guess not really hypocrisy, but just, I don't know. Not really hypocrisy, but just, you know, I guess self-awareness is dead these days. But here's what... So, Meghan McCain is getting into a lot of hot water here recently because of some things that she said on The View. Now, do I watch The View? No. Do you?
I value my brain cells too much to watch The View.
Same here. And, you know, I can't stand Joy Behar or Whoopi Goldberg. I can't. And like Jacob, I value my my brain cells as well.
I can't.
So here's what Dr. Fauci had to say on The View.
Dr. Anthony Fauci is being pretty frank about how the states have handled this and says we still have plenty of work ahead of us. Take a look.
500,000 Americans, families grieving all across the country. Did this have to be?
Well, certainly some of it, but not this bad, George. I mean, I believe that if you look back historically, we've done worse than most any other country. And we're a highly developed, rich country. Rather than even think about declaring victory and saying, well, we have herd immunity, we're in good shape, we've got to keep pushing and pushing because this thing could bounce back with the variants very, very quickly.
Okay, so you would think, okay, so that's not that big of a deal, right? He didn't say anything necessarily, I don't know, outlandish stuff he normally says, right? Other than the fact that, dude, you were in charge. You were literally at the president's side when this all took place, and you said that we did worse than every other country? Bro, you were there. If it was so bad, then why didn't you resign in protest? Same thing with Dr. Birx. She said the same thing. Why didn't you resign in protest if you knew it was so bad? He seems to be kind of, I don't know, really, you know, he seems to be speaking very candidly, wouldn't you say, Jacob?
Yeah, Fauci's an interesting character. You know, he's always so late to make any sort of statement. He always says, you know, I don't want to speak on this, but he has no issue saying on other things. And once a position becomes mainstream, like once CNN or the New York Times picks it up, like with double masking, I think it was the New York Times wrote the first piece on it. He came out there and said, you know, well, of course you probably should. You know, it makes sense, more material. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And then he would go back and say, well, there's no evidence to support it works, but common sense would detail that it would stop the virus. I mean, common sense would also entail that if you put a trash bag on your head and taped it shut, that means you wouldn't get COVID either. Yeah.
So it's funny you say that he sometimes will speak very candidly, and other times, you know, he's like, well, I don't want to give an opinion. So here's how he responds when he's asked about getting things back to normal.
Gotten their second dose. They're fully vaccinated. Does that mean it's okay for them to spend time with their grandchildren who obviously have not been vaccinated? What's your recommendation?
You know, I'm not going to make a recommendation now except to say that these are things that we really do. I mean, literally every day, Tano, we look at that, we look at the data, we look at what's evolving about how many people are getting vaccinated, and there will be recommendations coming out. I don't want to be making a recommendation now on public TV. We want to sit down with the team, take a look at that.
So isn't that
can't make a recommendation because the New York Times hasn't written a post about it yet.
Right.
You know, it is funny. He went on CNN recently and said something about how folk could be wearing masks until 2022.
Yes.
And that we can't. There was another clip you didn't show it. There's a clip where he mentions that we have to stay vigilant because of these new variants, and then not but a short time later he says that he thinks that we've beaten or that we have peaked with these variants. The whole double masking thing, there's a thing I put on Twitter about this, and I said that some people, this is gonna be the new thing for them. Like they're gonna wear masks, and that's just how it's gonna be. They're always gonna be afraid of people. It may take them a long time before they fly on the airplanes or before they go to a concert or a sporting event. And look, I've repeatedly long said that if you want to do that with your life, go for it. Just don't dictate to me. Excuse me. Don't dictate to me how I should live my life, or don't alienate me, or don't call me a grandma killer because I don't live my life the same way that you do.
Because I'm not as scared as you.
He talks about that these new variants, right? He said that these new variants could shoot up the cases and hospitalizations and stuff like that. So you know, even though we're back down to pre-spike levels of the winter, as far as cases go, we're not allowed to, you know, he's like, oh no, hold up, don't go back to normal yet. We can't declare victory yet because there's these variants which we don't really know much about them, but they could be bad. So it's, you know, keep wearing your mask and keep doing that. There was a very funny thing that I did see that happened with all of the two funny things I saw about. I was on Twitter. I saw these interesting charts. Fauci recently came out and said that he blamed the fall and winter surge on people becoming loose with their mitigation measures. And this fabulous person on Twitter, I did retweet it, so you can go check the receipts, pulled up the retail and recreation percentages. So basically, this is the data that shows how many number of visitors visit areas of a retail, recreation, and it changes over time. These places include restaurants, cafes, shopping centers, theme parks, museums, etc., etc. We had a massive spike to the highest level possible for cases, hospitalizations, all that were record high. Do you know what was not record high? People going out and ignoring mitigation rules. You can see there is a clear trajectory downward, that fewer people actually went out and interacted into the economy and committed commerce. Another funny thing. Remember, I know that you mentioned about the Super Bowl. They were saying it's going to be a massive super spreader event. You know, no one was wearing masks, and Tom Brady wasn't wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. Do you know what city has not?
What?
You know what state and what city has not seen a massive spike, even though the Super Bowl was 2 weeks ago?
Florida?
Florida. There is no clear indication of any sort of super spreader event that has happened in the state of Florida. So, you know, yes, it was more distanced out, but few people wore masks. And there was no
Tom Brady didn't wear one.
There was no sign of, and again, there's no science. There's no study. There's no anything about people at an outdoor event wearing masks and it stopping the spread of COVID. There's absolutely no evidence to support that wearing masks or not wearing masks would have any difference in the spread of this virus, regardless of what our overlord Fauci says. But I do think it's funny that you can just poke holes with these arguments. I mean, look, idiots on Twitter can do this stuff. And why is this guy still taken seriously? It baffles me why this man is still taken seriously at all. And not only that, but I can't find it. So I'll repost it on my Twitter. I think that the tweet got taken down. But the chart to trump all charts was recently posted. And no, actually, it was in a Tom Woods email, which if you've not subscribed to, by the way, you're missing out. Tom Woods sent out an email with the chart to trump all charts, and it was a color-coded chart based on deaths per 1 million, and they had it from least to highest, and every state was a category. It was categorized by color based on no lockdowns, or a state that had a lockdown, lifted it, and did not reissue a lockdown. Case in point for that would be like Florida or Georgia. We did not reissue a lockdown, whereas a state like not Chicago, but a state like Illinois did. Difference. And then it had the averages between those three categories. And do you know can you guess the statistical the difference between the average of states that had lockdowns and those that didn't? The states that had no lockdowns actually did better. I think it was 1,200 deaths per million, with states that did not have lockdowns, and states that did have lockdowns had 1,300 deaths per million. So if the conventional wisdom is right, so Lord Messiah Fauci, it shouldn't even be close. Even if those numbers were flipped, I would still say that it's all BS. I would still say it's all crap. What it should have been is it should have been double, triple that. It shouldn't even be close if these mitigation methods and if the masks and if these lockdowns, if they work so well they're supposed to work, then it shouldn't even be close, right?
Yeah, there should be mass graves in Florida.
Yeah, Florida should be gone. Georgia should be gone.
Every nursing home should be empty.
Georgia, if someone comes at me and says, "Oh, well, Florida at this one point had more hospitalizations per 100,000, they had 5% more," like, no, you don't understand. They shouldn't even be close. California should be if everything that they're saying is right, then all of the states that had these lockdowns and these mask mandates should be like infinitely better than states that didn't, but they're not. They're comparable, so that means that it's all
BS.
It's all BS. Exactly.
So I think it's funny, like we just pointed out, that Fauci cannot keep his mouth shut when it comes to talking about how bad the Trump administration did, how we were the worst country responded to coronavirus. But when it comes to recommendation, like a doctor's supposed to make, he's like, well, I'm going to hold back a minute. I think it's hilarious that he's saying that we'll be wearing masks until 2022 to protect against the coronavirus. So it turns out to be that the 15 days to slow the spread turned out to be a year to slow the spread. And now he's saying that we could possibly get back to normal by the end of this year. So the 15 days to slow the spread is going to turn into 2 years to slow the spread. 2 years. Now, I can't take this bull crap for one more minute. I can't. Over the weekend, we went out to a restaurant here in the town we live in. Small restaurant, small business. The food was but we went in there, no masks, no social distancing. There was no limited capacity. People were all over each other. It was a busy Friday night. People were having fun. People were drinking. They were eating. Like the virus wasn't even happening. None of the waitresses had masks on. It was amazing. It was great. I loved every second of it, even though the food was kind of eh. Then Saturday night, we go to the Ponce Market in Atlanta. And oh my gosh, everyone had a mask on. I didn't wear one in pure defiance and civil disobedience because that's just who I am. You were too much of a cuck and decided to wear one. But...
No.
Just kidding.
No, I was on private property and I respected the rules of that establishment because I was going to patronize them. I have been fully... There is a clear, full difference between the two.
Jacob, it's a joke.
Yeah, better be.
It's a joke. Again, private business, that's one thing. It's a joke, Jacob. It's a joke. But I didn't wear one, and no one said anything to me because nobody, I don't think anybody really cares because everyone in Atlanta the farther you go into these major cities, they're kind of shocked that you don't go with the crowd on this kind of stuff. And so there was the stickers over the floor, social distancing, everyone was wearing a mask, you can't gather into groups, all the bull crap. The stark contrast between the two. Here you have a group of people continuing to live in fear over the germ, and here you have a group of people who are deciding not to live in fear over the germ. So I think you got to decide which side you're on. Are you going to continue to live in fear? Are you going to continue to tell them what you have to do? Are you going to continue to put the diaper on your face to make sure you're 6 feet away from each other for another year? You're going to continue to do this bull crap for another year? Or are you going to say, you know what? Screw it. Let's go back to normal. Let's be normal people again. That's up to you. I hope that people will choose to go back to normal. Because we can't do this for another year. We can't. Fauci, complained about super spreader events at Trump rallies, but said nothing about Black Lives Matter rallies. Are we going to continue to let the hypocrisy just slip by? I don't know. What else did I want to mention on that? I don't think there's anything else I wanted to mention. You have anything else you want to mention on that? COVID bullcrap?
I didn't have anything else.
So it looks like the Dems are gonna. What looks like they voted to advance the $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief package. Sets the stage for the House to pass the bill later this week. So it moved out of the House Budget Committee into now it's going to go for a House floor vote. Now it's suddenly like I know we've said this a number of times now, but the Republicans finally found a spine. They're saying, well, this is too big. So, gosh, we need to send this to a friend of ours because he's been asking about what's going to be in the package. But it's the typical just pork barrel spending stuff. Nothing really new to see here. But what is interesting about all of this is now that they've passed the initial first CARE Act with the over $1 trillion. Mm-hmm. They've passed stimulus checks and all that. Now they're talking about $1.9 trillion with the latest package. And when I was doing my research for the show, more people were talking. Biden was talking about an even larger package that's going to include infrastructure spending and child care and just all kinds of stuff that have got nothing to do with COVID. And they're talking about more stimulus checks and more and more and more and more spending. Well, that's got a lot of people on Wall Street just slightly concerned. So I don't know if you saw this or not, but not only is the price of oil going up, it's up what? What's the current price of oil, Jake?
It was like $61.50.
$61.50. There's been a huge increase in assets. So for instance, there was a 300% increase in the Tesla stock just over the last year. Copper prices are up 56%. The S&P Case-Shiller Home Price Index is up 9.5%. Freight prices are up 215%. Soybeans are up 54%, and lumber is up 115%. So what I think is happening here is I think people are starting to know that there's some inflation going on here. I think they're starting to realize the fact that, hey, you can't just run a target price of inflation at the Fed because, we got to maintain full employment. You can't run an inflation target of 2% in perpetuity forever. You can't just give away all this free money. You can't just pump the stock market full of free liquidity. You can't just put zeros in bank accounts forever and never expect that to come back to bite you in the end. So Michael Burry, who is a Wall Street investor, he's like the big short investor. He warned governments might squash Bitcoin and gold to protect their currencies. He's kind of I forget which firm he works for. It doesn't matter. But anyway, so he says, prepare for inflation, the investor said it in a now-deleted tweet on Thursday night. Reopening and stimulus on the way pre-COVID, so this is before COVID, it took $3 of debt to create $1 GDP.
What is it now?
We don't know quite yet now. And it is worse now. If an inflationary crisis, governments will move to squash competitors in the currency arena like Bitcoin and gold. So I think investors in the market are realizing the fact that, hey, there's a huge problem for inflation right now. And one instance was what happened with GameStop in the Game Stonks, is that you had all these people that just have all this extra cash on their hands, maybe because they're not spending it because you can't do anything these days anymore, depending on where you live, or you got $600 or you got $1,200 from the government, and you're like, you know what, screw it, we'll put it in GameStop because, own the libs and own Wall Street. So when people have all this excess money that's around and everyone's gotten a bailout and they're talking about giving more money out, there's a huge risk for inflation. And that's not solely because of the bailout money. This goes back decades and decades of just artificial inflation and just quantitative easing and all of that. And so what you're starting to see is the bubble get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the so-called experts are actually starting to see it now. So what you think? Okay, well, what is inflation? What is that? What does that mean? Well, inflation just simply means an increase in the money supply. And so when the Fed sets an inflation rate of 2%, so suppose you had $100 in a bank account. So if the inflation rate is 2%, then every year take $2 away from your $100. Now you have $98. That's what inflation is. So now, inflation is not just a measure of of how much money is in circulation. It's also how fast that money is changing hands. So the faster that money is changing hands, the faster the market sees that there's more money in circulation. So anytime that happens, so if you give everyone $1,200 or give everyone $600 and they immediately go spend it, well, you're going to start seeing inflated prices because that's just how this stuff works. So I think that people need to keep that in mind when they start to see things like the price of gasoline go up. On Thursday last week, when I left work, gas was $2.35 per gallon. And then when I left work on when I left work on Saturday, it was $2.50. That's a 15-cent jump. Now, I know the price of oil has gone up as well, but you can't tell me that there is a legitimate reason why lumber is up 117%. Now, are people building more homes? Maybe.
Well, yeah, there's not enough homes, so there's a mad dash. But even there's a mad dash right now to buy homes, and that's being pushed by people actually moving out of these larger cities. One, but it's also how cheap it is to get a mortgage. It's how cheap. I mean, you can get a mortgage for next to nothing right now. I mean, every day I look at the numbers from the Wall Street Journal, and it is, I mean, mortgage rates are stupid low. And there's such a demand for lumber to build these homes. Why? Because they've made it an incentive with interest rates being so low that it's pushed the cost of this up. And why is that? Because of the inflation and the increase of money supply.
So it's not so much an increase in prices of goods like toothpaste or the loaf of bread or maybe a gallon of milk. It's not so much that, but it's asset prices. Things that go into...
Well, it's commodity prices too.
Right. So it's things that you use to build a house, like lumber or copper or steel. Things, input prices, right? You can't just buy steel and build a house. You got to, forge it. You got to make it so you can actually build a house. Refine it. And you can actually build a house with it. So if people are seeing a demand for it, plus everything's getting more expensive because of inflation, you've got a major problem on your hands. And the people that run the central banks, the people that run the Treasury, I mean, I don't think it's any coincidence. I really don't think it's any coincidence that within the last week, you've had Brother Jerome, and Janet Yellen come out and say very, very unfavorable things about Bitcoin.
Well, also Bill Gates came out and
said... Yeah.
Bill Gates came out...
Dr. Bill Gates.
Bill Gates came out and said... he said that cryptocurrency is the one innovation that the world could do without. And I basically said, shut up. Because, like, who are you to say what innovation is not, what can and cannot do without? The issue is that they don't like it because they have not found a way to control this yet. And I don't know if
because there really is no way.
Yeah, there's no way to really. The only way that they can control this, and Peter Schiff's talked about this, is that if you can go after some of these brokerage accounts like Robinhood or some of these other apps that allow you to buy and sell it that are more more publicly used. Robinhood's pretty popular,
Yeah.
and you can buy and sell crypto on. So if the federal government and the Treasury Department and the SEC were to declare cryptocurrency a security, which it's not technically, it'd be considered a currency or a commodity, because you can buy and sell things with it. Then they could go after these and tell them that you are selling an unlicensed, you are unlicensed and you're selling securities. That's the only way they can go after it, because it's blockchain. And good luck.
Yeah, and anytime you have a central bank or a government that just spends money like there's no tomorrow, of course they're going to hate gold and silver because that's actual money. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that Bitcoin is a store of value or that you should have Bitcoin. I have no idea what you should do. If you should own Bitcoin or not own Bitcoin. To me, this is my personal opinion. This is not financial advice, but it just seems kind of crazy that you would put all of your, what you physically own into something that can be turned off. Because if they restrict internet access, which is how you use Bitcoin, if they say that you are not allowed to, exchange monetarily with Bitcoin, like you can't buy a loaf of bread or a pizza with it, then what good is it? I mean, I don't care how many Bitcoins you have on cold storage in your basement, in your safe, it's worthless. So if they restrict access to it and they make it illegal, or they just flat out, prevent you from using it to make purchases online, then what good is Bitcoin? And the Bitcoiners will say, well, they can do the same thing with gold. Yes, they can.
They can, yeah.
But here's the difference, though. It's a whole heck of a lot easier to just make it impossible to use Bitcoin on the internet than it is to go door to door and take people's gold. I mean, I got a point, don't I? And I'm not just regurgitating Peter Schiff talking points. I'm not doing that. I'm just thinking about it pragmatically, thinking, hey, maybe this isn't such a good idea. But other than that, I think cryptocurrencies are great. I think they're a great way to give the middle finger, if you will, to the establishment.
I don't. I've always long said that as far as the store of value of it, personal opinion, again, this is no financial advice. My personal opinion, I don't know the long-term capability of store of value. I think it's too volatile to like have a significant percentage of your portfolio in that. It's not like a stock, which it's gonna move. I mean, if you own like a blue chip stock like a UPS or a Disney, it's not gonna move like 15% in one day. It doesn't happen. And it's not like gold, or silver, which may have more volatility here recently, but it's going to hold its value much better. But I think honestly, having exposure into it is something that you probably can't go wrong with.
Yeah. So whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum or even Doge, look into it and do your research and invest accordingly. What's interesting, the fact that, I look up all this stuff on inflation, and I'm looking into the history of inflation, and of course, I land on old Paul Volcker after he died, all the articles that were written when he died. So if you know anything about Paul Volcker, he was the Fed chairman from 1971 to 1987, I think.
Wasn't he under Reagan?
He was under Carter and Reagan.
Yeah.
And during his tenure at the Fed, there was hyperinflation, like serious hyperinflation, like double-digit inflation. And, it's funny to read all these left-wing articles saying that he was a friend and, the so far-right Mises Institute people just love Paul Volcker. And then you go read Joe Salerno, and he's like, yeah, I really don't like Paul Volcker. You're like, are you people reading off the same cue card?
No, they're not.
It's hilarious. But anyway, so if what I'm saying is true about inflation that's coming, what's his name again? Michael Burry is saying about the coming inflation, and what people like Peter Schiff and all these other people are saying about the coming inflation, or even if it's deflation, if what we're saying is true about the coming double-digit inflation, then the people are going to have to turn to people like Paul Volcker at some point, because you cannot let double-digit inflation just go on forever. Because
run rampant,
because that will literally destroy everything. We will be the Weimar Republic. And Paul Volcker gets a bad rap about things that he said and things that he did, and for different reasons. The left hates him because he proposed an idea to freeze wages, which that's not really a good idea, but the left doesn't like that because wages. But the right also hate him because he proposed the Bretton Woods scheme that basically officially took the dollar off the gold standard. And there's many different reasons why he did that, and I'm not going to get into that now. But he also knew the fact that you cannot let inflation run rampant. He said that the American people more or less need to be humbled in a way. The standard of living has to go down for a little bit because we have to adjust this. And so he raised interest rates dramatically to cut inflation. Now, that did cause a lot of pain. No doubt. It did cause a recession. But what would have happened if you just let inflation keep going up? The country would have been destroyed. Now, I'm not saying Paul Volcker saved the world or saved the economy or, put us on the right path. But at some point, you're going to have someone that's going to have to come in and say, you know what? We got to trim the fat here. We actually have to pay our bills. We have to live within our means, because right now, Americans live way beyond their means. The fact that you can go to college and spend $100,000 and get a degree that's literally not worth the paper it's written on is insane. I don't know the exact numbers, but back in the day, only 4% of the population went to college and got a college degree because it actually was worth something. Now, everybody's got a college degree and it's worth nothing, right? People buy cars, they buy homes that they can't afford. People have outrageous amounts of credit card debt, student loan debt. They buy, they got, an outrageous mortgage they can just barely afford with an interest rate out the wazoo. That's not a healthy economy. When they talk about keeping interest rates low because, it helps spur economic growth. Well, no, that's not how you create growth. That's not how the economy grows. You can't just shovel money out and say, oh, the economy grew. Yeah, that's one way. Yes, that's one way you can do it. But that's not healthy. For an economy to grow healthily, in a healthy manner, production has to come from savings. And savings has to come from production. So credit should be hard to get. Loans should be hard to get, and they should come with an actual interest rate, not 0 or 0.1%. Money should be hard to borrow, because if it's hard to borrow, then you'll work really hard to pay it back. And if you don't, well, you'll pay a hefty fine. So the idea that you can just keep interest rates at 0 forever and everything will just be awesome and nothing will ever be wrong. Sorry, folks, they're lying to you. And I don't care what the monetary theory people say. I don't care what the Keynesians say. If the Great Depression and the Great Recession have proved anything, it proved them wrong. Yes, sure, a lot of people said that, in 2008 there would be a hyperinflation. Yeah, they were wrong about hyperinflation in prices, but all that inflation went into the Dow Jones, went into the NASDAQ, went into Apple and Tesla. That's where the inflation went. Like there's no logical reason why, when you have a crumbling economy, you have Janet Yellen said when you actually measure unemployment correctly, it's somewhere around 10%, and that's supposedly after the economy has turned around. If you listen to what Trump says. So she's saying the actual employment's 10%, but you have a stock market making record highs. If you have companies like Tesla where the stock grew 300% in over a single year, you have Elon Musk becoming the world's richest person within a year. That's insane. That's not healthy. Now, whether that's people that have their stimulus checks just shoveling into Robinhood and buying it up whatever, that's certainly true. But I think that there's so much digital zeros out there moving back and forth in between Wall Street and the Treasury and the Fed, that I think that's what's driving up all these asset prices and prices as far as like toothpaste and stuff. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. And this is where the unfortunately, because of the cheap money supply, and if you want to understand this fully, I mean, Peter Schiff's probably the best person to lay all this out. But the issue is that the U.S. economy has been it's fueled uniquely by credit and debt. Mm-hmm. Without credit and without the ability to borrow money in the United States, the economy doesn't function correctly. Nobody can go out and buy a car with cash. No one can go buy a home with cash.
Nobody has any savings.
No one can buy a cell phone with cash. This is the reason why your bank account, your savings account, pays no money in interest, right? Banks are not interested. Typically, what would happen is that a bank needs you to store money with them, so that way they can go issue out loans with it, right? That's what a fractional reserve. If I'm not mistaken, I'm very tired, but
that's basically how it works.
That's how it works. Is that a bank? How they make money? They make money off of loans, right? But they need capital. They need money so they can go do that. So typically they say, "Hey, put your money in a savings account, and we'll pay you interest, so that way we can use that money to issue out loans with." Because I mean it's savings, so you're not going to touch it. So we can use that money to issue out loans, and then we make money off that interest. That's how banks make money.
under a fractional reserve system.
Yes, under a normal capitalistic system where you have normal interest rates and they're not artificially suppressed as they are right now. What you're seeing is that anytime the interest rates try to move up, the Fed has to instantly come in and suppress that and make sure they don't rise to what they're supposed to be, instead of letting the market work. The reason why your bank doesn't pay interest is because there's no reason to. Mm-hmm. There's no reason. I think my bank account pays me like 0.1% interest. On an average day in the stock market, I can make that in a single day. So again, there's no reason to save your money. There's no reason to do that because everybody just goes out and borrows money. So if you take away the ability to borrow money and the ability to
get
have
a loan,
quick access to liquidity, the whole thing falls apart.
I saw this interesting thing on Twitter, and it was how long it took Apple to reach $1 trillion, and it was like 44 years. Apple was 30 years. Another company was 20 years, and then another company, I think it was like 12 years. You know how long it took Bitcoin to reach $1 trillion?
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah, 10 years.
So if it took a legacy company like a Microsoft or Apple or what was the first one I mentioned?
Multiple. You mentioned Amazon. Maybe?
That wasn't Amazon, but these large legacy companies like Apple or Microsoft or whatever. If it takes them 44 years, 32 years to reach $1 trillion, but yet it only takes about 10 years for Bitcoin to reach $1 trillion in market cap valuation, either what they're producing is so great, maybe Bitcoin is just that good, or there might be some inflation going on there. Just saying. Got anything else?
Not particularly. As far as anything exciting, I do have one little tidbit, one for the road segment, folks. If you guys want to, do you have anything else that you want to go on?
I've got one for the road, but you go first.
So yesterday, 41 years ago, it's today actually. Mm-hmm. 41 years ago today, the miracle on ice happened. For those of you who don't know, the United States beat the USSR in the it was the semifinals.
Yeah,
of the Olympics. And the best way to put this into perspective is that what this meant it was the greatest upset in all of sporting history. Greatest upset. It was the equivalent of for baseball listeners. It's the equivalent of Georgia Tech, the college baseball team Georgia Tech, beating the American League All-Stars. That is what the equivalent of it was.
Or like the 90s Yankees.
The 90s Yankees, or insert greatest baseball team, the 27 Yankees or whoever. I always see the All-Stars. But yeah, just the National League, American League All-Stars versus a college team, and that's what it was. With the USSR was just blowing people out, 7-0, 7-1, 8-1, no competition, and then United States went there and beat him. Eventually, won the gold medal that year. Something that you'll never see again, because back then it was pros couldn't play. The professionals couldn't play, and the Olympic was supposed to be amateurs. And the USSR actually beat the NHL All-Stars. Just smoked them. They like 5-0, smoked them. And then you had a bunch of these kids in their early 20s beat the.
I think the average age was like 25. I think.
Yeah,
fairly young.
So college kids.
Good movie, Miracle on Ice. Good movie. I think
it's good.
Disney movie. It's a good movie. You should watch it. I watched it. Not that long ago.
The greatest moment in sporting history.
Yeah,
and of all time, it's the greatest moment in all the sports.
Absolutely.
So that happened 41 years ago today. So there you
go. So there's this. If my computer would work. Gosh. Okay, here we go. So Governor Brian Kemp of here down in old Georgia rolls out Faith Protection Act legislation. So the Kemp announced, I guess this was February 18th, so just a couple days ago, introduced the Faith Protection Act, which would ensure the emergency powers of any governor of Georgia are not used to specifically limit the practice of any religion, which I think is great.
But isn't that? Wait, hold up.
Hey, no. Shh. Stop. I know you're going with this, so don't say anything. So during the COVID-19 pandemic, people of faith across America were told by state governments how and where and when, or even if they could worship at all. Not in Georgia. We chose to work alongside congregations across our state to ensure they practice their faith and safety in accordance with public health guidance, said Brian Kemp. The Faith Protection Act will ensure the emergency powers of any governor of Georgia in years to come are not used to limit the God-given right to worship. In Georgia, we never shut our churches, synagogues, or other places of worship because we value faith, family, and freedom. The Faith Protection Act signed into law, Georgia will be a sanctuary state for people of faith. Well, Brian, that's a great thing to say. Oh, wait. What is this? Churches not exempt from shelter-in-place order over the COVID-19 pandemic. Churches statewide shelter-in-place orders go into effect at 6 p.m. Friday per the governor's office. Churches are not allowed to open for services or funeral services if there will be more than 10 people in a single location.
What are you talking about?
Unless there are 6 feet apart. So he said.
What are you talking about? Was that back in March?
Yes.
Oh.
So he's coming out now and saying, "Oh, we're never going to do this again," even though he literally did the same thing.
Well, not even that. This is the First Amendment.
Yeah.
Whole thing is the First Amendment. The First Amendment. This is the entire thing. The entire thing is the First Amendment. Everything you literally just said there is outlined completely in the First Amendment of the Bill of Rights.
So at church, we had a guest speaker, and he was praising this act. And I sat there and I said, the fact that we even have to have this proves that this whole thing is a sham. Because like you said, the freedom of assembly shall not be infringed. It's pretty clear to me.
Well, and the Bill of Rights is not a restriction of the people. It's not telling the people what they're allowed to do. That the people can do whatever they want. The Bill of Rights is telling the government what they're not allowed to do. It says Congress shall make no law. It's not the people shall not do this or shall not do this. That's a misconception, is that it's the Constitution is
very clear.
No, it's supposed to be rules for the government, not for the people.
Right. So the fact that you even have to have a law like this is utterly insane, because like we just said, the Constitution is very clear. The Bill of Rights is very clear. The First Amendment is very clear on what government is not allowed to do. What this almost sounds like to me is people asking for permission. oh, Governor Brian Kemp, can we please go worship it on Sunday? No, you don't ask the governor if you can go worship. You just go to church. That's what you do. And then the guest speaker said, well, will we ever allow churches to be closed again by the government because of a pandemic in the future? And people said no, but you let it happen this time.
Yeah.
You people are cowards. You let it happen in the first place. So if you're not, it's like people that say, oh, well, if they were trying to come for my guns, I'm going to defend them. Really? Well, you wouldn't do anything over a simple little mask. You said, you know what? Well, the governor said we shouldn't go to church, so I'm not going to church. Why on earth would you say no to a gun confiscation then? Because when they're coming to take your guns, they're coming to shoot to kill if you refuse. Man, these conservatives aren't something, aren't they? All right, that's it for, you got anything else?
That's all I got, man.
That's all I got. Follow me on the Twitter, at Joe Stamberg, and you can follow Jacob
at JStandard_.
Email the show, the Standing Brothers Show the Standing Brothers Show at gmail.com. I always want to say .com. I don't know why. You got any questions, comments, or concerns, please send them to the email. Message us on the Tweety. We got a Q&A coming up here soon.
Shoot us the questions.
If you want to shoot us any questions there, Jacob has got an announcement he wants to make.
So I'm gonna start linking the YouTube channel. It is kind of old. We haven't posted anything political there.
Slightly cringy.
For over 2 years, but I am working on a project this week, and hopefully it'll be ready by the end of the week. The project is basically going to be, there's a lot of stories that I can't cover, or that we don't have the time to, or they're too small to talk about on the podcast. So it's going to be more of a lighthearted, quick 10, 12 minute YouTube video. It's going to be edited of myself and whoever just talking about these topics. So be on the lookout for that. You can go ahead and hit subscribe onto the YouTube channel. It's just my name, Jacob Standridge. I might eventually change the name to something like that. I just don't really I haven't done it in a while. But yeah, go head over there and and hit the subscribe, and
hit the bell.
Hit gotta go hit that bell. But yeah, be on the lookout for that. I don't know what this is gonna look like, but it's just another creative outlet for the channel. So we shall look at that.
I gave you an idea for a video that I wanted to do, and you thought it was pretty hilarious, but we're not gonna share what that is, because it might be a surprise. You never know.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. That's it for us. Please tune in on Friday. We'll have an episode up, and we'll be breaking down all the news as we usually do. So yeah, and peace.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, plane. Tranquility, we copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot.